The better your high school, the worse your chances are of getting into UC San Diego? And I know that's a pretty bold claim, but if this Reddit post is to be believed and the blog post that it contains, then it can spell some doom for people who come from prestigious or competitive high schools, specifically in California. If we look at the data that's presented in this article, it makes a pretty interesting case. Take a look at Lynbrook High down there. On the way right side of the x-axis, that means lots of students are meeting standards. But notice how it's lower on the y-axis. That means the percent of seniors admitted to UC San Diego, which, that was the focus of the study, is pretty low. Compare that to Berkeley High and Crawford High on the other side, way on the left over there. But you'll notice on the y-axis, more students are being admitted, even though less students overall are exceeding the standards of that school. The point being that just because you're at a better high school doesn't mean you have a better chance of getting into a top tier UC. And that point becomes even more clear when you look at the x-axis this time. Take a look at what it says here. That's the average number of applicants. You'll notice something like Lowell High down there, having a very high number of applicants, but on the y-axis, a very low admission rate. Now, compare that to Crawford High, which is, not many students are applying, yet their admission rate on average is a lot higher. So we're kind of getting a sense of the picture here, that if you're at a school where tons of students are applying to top colleges, that admission rate is going to be lower. But if you're at a school that isn't exactly meeting standards and less students are applying to that school, your admission rate out of that school is going to be a lot higher. The moral of the story here being that if you're at a high achieving school where everyone's taking AP classes and lots of people are in very rigorous coursework, you're competing against lots of other highly qualified candidates. Compared to that, if you're at a school that's less funded, doesn't really have all the AP classes, you end up standing out a lot more if your grades end up being good. And the next graph here is just kind of icing on the cake, talking about private high schools being at a disadvantage for UC San Diego admissions. Again, we see the same trend here where the average number of applicants reduces the admission rate, whereas if you have a lower number of applicants, again, you have that higher admission rate. And what's interesting about this to me is that as a private admissions counselor, I've even helped 7th and 8th graders get into local private high schools because, the idea being that if you're at a better high school, you'll have more support, better classes, better curriculum, and more likely a better chance of getting into these top schools, right? Well, the data sends a different message here.